Congressman Melancon is a fighter. He is not afraid to stand up for his beliefs.
He listens to both sides, but he's going to make a decision. And once he makes that decision, that's when he's going to stand up for that decision. And once it's made, and he's going to start fighting that fight, get out of his way.
You'll find that I'm in neither side, neither camp. I am where I believe I need to be for the people of my district and the people of this country.
He has always been interested in people and interested in making some sort of connection to them. And I don't know where he gets that from. It's a special quality. I've never met anybody else that truly cared about people as much as he does.
What I like about Charlie is failure doesn't make him give up. He continues to fight and fight harder for the things that we need.
Like my daddy used to say, a man that when he looks at you and shakes your hand, you can take it to the bank.
I've always told people, if I can help you, I will. If I can't help you, I'll tell you. But you won't have to guess where I am or what I'm doing, because I will always be upfront and make sure that you know that we're there and my office is there to help.
He's a lone wolf in the wilderness. It's just refreshing to see somebody do it.
He's got a good character.
He's a great communicator.
I believe that I was sent there for one purpose, to represent the people of the 3rd Congressional District, period. That's my job, that's what I'm there for, and that's what I do.
He's not just another politician, he's a friend, and he wants to help.
Well, Charlie woke me up the Sunday morning of the storm and said, I want you to evacuate. And I said, Charlie, we've never evacuated before. He said, yeah, but this one really scares me. And then as the day went on, he said, you know what, if it's as bad as they think it's going to be, we're going to get cut off, and I can't get cut off. He just had this big fear that his constituency needed him, and he wasn't going to be accessible if he had stayed at home.
So we put together, I guess, a network, people all over the country, people in our office, people on the ground in Baton Rouge and in Chalmette, and began delivering supplies into Baton Rouge by air, by truck, and what other means we could get it in there. And then figuring out how to get it down the river.
Let me say, you know, after the hurricane, all of the parishes were in a matter of total disarray. We had no communications. We had no anticipation of what was coming next. Charlie and his staff personally were contacting us on a regular basis, letting us know that they were out there, they were fighting for us, they were out there wanting to provide the assistance we needed.
When many of the federal and state officials were flying in helicopters and planes, observing what was going on, Charlie, Congressman Melancon, was on the ground. He was on the ground with us as first responders, finding out what our needs were, what the people's needs were. He was instrumental in bringing in equipment, supplies, and just a slew of resources that was needed at the time.
This is Chalmette Slip, and this is where the sheriff and the first responders were bringing all the people that they were evacuating from the flooded homes all throughout St. Bernard Parish. And this is where we put people on barge to move them to Algiers Point. This is where, when we commandeered, mostly the sheriff commandeered tugboats and such as that.
But I'll never forget, there were people standing in line, and all they had was a Walmart bag, and that was all they had left in the whole world. And there were little kids, there were people with their pets, and then they had a whole warehouse full of people.
When we got the food from all over the country that were flown in and trucked in, and we couldn't get it here by any other means by water, we loaded them in Baton Rouge, tugged them down here, and unloaded them here. And then the first responders that were on the ground here distributed them to the people. This building was full with people, and they were trying to keep them moving and flowing out so that they didn't gather in the thousands and we had problems here.
But Charlie and his staff were providing us the support we needed, whether it be getting military supplies, whether it be getting truckloads and directing truckloads of supplies, medical supplies, food rations, clothing. And he was directing supplies and needed supplies and equipment so that we could care for and assist all of these needs.
And as we walked down the line, the sheriff was talking with this first guy, and he looked at the sheriff, and of course they've all got this glazed look. They're just, you know, they've been out on tops of the roof for a couple of days, and they said, "You remember my brother, you know where we live, please go and get him, he drowned." Then the third guy was a guy with a grocery bag who stood there, and the sheriff knew him, and he says, "Yeah, I see you've got your lunch." And he looked at the bag, and he looked at the sheriff, and he says, "This is everything I own."
I think if it wasn't for the work that Charlie's done, we would be in bad shape down here. I felt like Washington pretty much turned their backs on us for a long time.
Charlie was determined that they were his people and they weren't going to be forgotten as long as he was their congressman. And I think that's what, more than anything, that's what he's been doing for the last 9 months, is making sure they're not forgotten. And he's going to fight till there's not a breath left in him to make sure that somebody's paying attention.
You know, when these hurricanes hit, they didn't discriminate. It wasn't a black or white thing. It wasn't a rich or poor thing. It wasn't a Democrat or Republican thing. When we were flying those helicopters and sending those barges down into Plaquemines Parish and St. Bernard Parish, we were picking up people. We were picking up Americans. We were picking up citizens. We were picking up people that had lived their life as they believed they should, that paid their taxes, bought the insurance that they thought they needed in the time that they get into a hurricane, raised their kids, educated them as best they could, did everything every one of us has ever tried to do with our family. And now, they're out there in the cold by themselves looking for help, and all we get is little dribbles and bits of money.
I have a very sick daughter that I was transporting back and forth between New Orleans and Houston, and had Mr. Melancon not came to my aid, I'd still be traveling with my daughter back and forth, and I'd still be living in Houston today instead of putting my life back together. I had applied for a loan through SBA to rebuild my home. I found another home to buy. It had taken such a long time. And they told me when I contacted SBA that it would take between 12 and 16 weeks in order for them to change the loan from a rebuild to a relocate.
So I contacted Mr. Melancon's office here in Chalmette. They got me in touch with the Washington office. Instead of months, it was a couple of weeks, and we had the SBA loan straightened out, and it was all approved, and we were able to move. I was able to get my entire family back together.
And that's what I told Mr. Melancon on the phone. Just to get my 2 children back together meant everything to me, and it means everything to me. I'm very grateful. I am very grateful to him.
When we saw that the storm was heading our way, my daughter said, "We need to leave." And we evacuated to Houston. My husband started feeling bad, and I took him to the emergency room Tuesday morning. At 2:15, he passed away, 5 days after the storm. I was trying to get all my affairs in order after my husband's death, and it just seemed like I kept running into roadblocks, especially with VA. That's when I went to see Congressman Melancon, and they were, real compassionate, and they really helped me out a lot. And within a matter of less than a month, I had all my back pay and my current checks, and a letter from VA saying that this was what I was going to be getting, and it was just remarkable. And I called the office and I said, "I never could have done this without you. It never would have been this easy."
Prior to Katrina, I found out I had colon cancer and had to take months and months, 9 months of chemo and radiation. But when Katrina hit, that had to come to a halt. Didn't have no place else to go now. I don't have a residence, nothing. Well, the problem was I was sleeping in my vehicle for months, and I was getting nowhere with FEMA. I was calling FEMA every day, telling them the situation, and that was the remark that I had made about President Bush will send $80 billion or whatever to Iraq, but leave me, an American citizen, living out of a vehicle for 3 months. And FEMA lady told me, "That's absolutely correct, sir." You know, and that really hurt me as an American citizen, a disabled American citizen.
I felt part of a family when I walked in that office, and that's no kidding. I'm not just saying that. That's how I felt. I felt I was saved. Because of my health and because I was so weak and couldn't function no more, I couldn't argue with anyone anymore. I was at the point where, let me just give up. And you go to the store and you buy a notebook and a pen and you start writing out notes to your children and writing out a will and everyone in your family, how much you love them. That I felt that, you know, I don't know if I would have made it. I couldn't go no more. I couldn't keep arguing with people on the phone. And this thing we're talking about as far as calling Mr. Melancon's office, it was like total relief. It was like I can tear these pieces of paper up that I wrote. He may think he gave me this much help, but he gave me more help than I could ever ask for. I asked for an inch, and he gave me 2 feet.
I believe that the person that serves the people and serves them best is the person that is close to the people and helps them when they're in need. Legislating is not necessarily the biggest part of this job, nor does it necessarily help people every day. If I can help, and my office can help one person any given day with a problem, then it's been a good day.